This is Ryan McGowan, and you're listening to Monday Night Football.
Good evening, and welcome to Monday Night Football for another week. As always, full studio, and we've got a guest on the line straight away. We are going to kick off very quickly. Danny Grainger, are you there?
I'm here, guys, yeah.
Perfect. If it's okay with you, we're going to crack on with the interview. What we're going to do, obviously because of the context of the show, we tend to concentrate on Hearts and Hibs for the former players. But with yourself, I want to have a wee bit of a more general discussion about your career in the first instance, especially because there are some experiences early in your career that then you kind of came around again possibly later on, and especially at Hearts there are some parallels that can be drawn, in particular from your time at Gretna to your time at Hearts, and I want to just get a wee idea from yourself in terms of how they differed, you know, and how your previous experience influenced how you dealt with it when it happened with Hearts. Does that sound alright for yourself?
Yeah, no problem at all.
Let's start with Gretna then. How did it come about that you signed for, at that point, you know, little Gretna?
What it was my old coach from when I was an under 10. He used to come around the schools and do a bit of coaching, things like that. Before I'd signed for Carlisle in the youth teams, he was just going around the schools and doing a bit of coaching and things like that, and ended up getting involved with Gretna. Once I'd left Carlisle, we sort of came back in touch with each other, and he asked me to go up for a trial game, and Rowan Alexander and Derek Fry, who were the manager and assistant manager at the time up there, were watching the game. I was actually playing as a centre forward at the time, and they, as soon as the game finished, they called me into the office and they said they wanted to offer me a contract. So obviously with a chance of going full time as Brooks took over the club, it was something that I jumped at. At the time I was being offered a deal with Queen of the South as well, so it was a hard decision for me to whether to go part time in the first division or that right at the bottom of Gretna, but going full time, and it was something that I thought I had to give myself a chance of doing, was playing full time football.
How quickly into your time at Gretna did it become clear that there was something a wee bit special about to happen there?
Probably within the first few days, to be honest with you. Once I'd sort of signed the paperwork and all things had come through, I was travelling through to training with Gav Skelton at the time. The first team was still part-time, but the youngsters were full-time. So there was a day when it was me and two or three of the boys on the pitch doing a bit of work on the pitch, and the manager at the time, Rowan, put a tannoy over the stadium, asked me to go to the office, and he introduced me to Brooks, and from then it was sort of, I knew that something big was going to happen to the club, and Brooks said that this club will be playing in the SPL in the not so distant future.
There was then a real influx of experienced campaigners, even Premier League campaigners at that point, when it was still, you know, third and second division football. How big an impact did that have on you as a young player at Gretna?
To be honest with you, you can look at it one or two ways. You can either say it's sort of restricted the chance for me getting a chance in the first team, because at the time it was Lee Madison and Jim McQuilkin who were the two left backs, and Gav Skelton was also there. So at the time, obviously, it did restrict me slightly into game time. But again, I also got a chance to work with players that probably were too good for that division. So I like Derek Townsley and guys like that, who John O'Neill and Tam Turner, these guys, Ronnie McQuilter, who had all dropped down the divisions to play for Gretna. It was obviously, it was great for me to be able to train alongside these guys and learn from them, and they were all very very good with the youngsters. They all try to help us and things like that. Obviously back in them days you could stick it into the youngsters as well if they weren't pulling the weight, whereas now you can't get away with as much, things like that. So no, it was great for me to be able to train alongside these guys, but it did maybe slow down my chance of playing first team football until obviously later in the season. In line with your chat about first team football there, you ended up for a period on loan at Brecon City. How did that come about? We were in the second division at the time, and Jamie McQuilkin was playing every week, and I was sort of playing an odd 20 minute here and there and things like that. So when it came to the Christmas, the manager pulled me in and he said, look, you're going to be part of my plans in the First Division. I see you as a big player for me in the First Division. I would like you to go out and play on loan, thinking that obviously that I would go on and gain experience from maybe a Second Division or Third Division team. Ian Campbell and Dick Campbell were managers and assistant manager up at Brecon at the time, so they phoned the manager up and asked me to go up there. And at the time, Davy Graham was living in Stirling, so I went and lived with Davy Graham for a few weeks and went on trial up there and things like that. So it worked out fantastic for me. I really enjoyed it. I think I played 11 games up there, and it really helped me realise that I want to be a footballer and play in the first team environment week in, week out. And I got a couple of red cards in my time there in 11 games, which wasn't great. But again, it was a learning curve for me that I couldn't be as hot-headed as what I can in maybe youth team football. So it was fantastic to go out and get them games. And again, I think between Gretna and Brecon, it made me realise how much of a drive I wanted to be a professional footballer at a good club.
That was a season that for Gretna culminated in a Scottish Cup final against Hearts. I know since that's happened, and especially with your later, link in with Hearts, that there's been a lot of chat about the fact that you missed that cup final because you were cup tied from your loan at Brecon. How much truth is in that? Would you have expected to be involved in the first team squad, or given that you were on the fringes throughout that season, do you think that would have been unlikely anyway?
Yeah, no, I think I would have. I was on the bench. We played St Johnstone earlier in the cup, and I was on the bench there. And I think it was the St Mirren game at home. I think I'd got injured on one of the training sessions beforehand, and I was likely to be involved on the bench then. So it was. I would have been expecting to be on the bench come cup final day. If obviously things hadn't happened with me going out to Brecon when semi-finals were on and I was ineligible to play.
How did that? Were you aware of that the whole time, or did someone have to break that news to you at a certain point in the build-up to the final?
No, it was never made aware to me, and I don't think it was made aware to anybody at the club either, because of the whole I'd been involved earlier in the cup. So for some reason I don't know what had happened, but whether or not they'd gone to submit the team forms or something like that. But all of a sudden on the Thursday or the Friday before we left for the hotel, the manager at the time, Rowan, had pulled me to a side, and I had my cup final suit / kilt all there on the bus waiting to go, and he just pulled me aside. He just said, we've had things back through saying that I won't be able to be on the bench. So obviously I was absolutely devastated about that, and he did still offer me the chance to go and be part of the cup final squad and go to the game and as part of that and things like that. But it was just something that I didn't really want to do. I didn't really want to be part of that after not being able to be involved.
But as Hearts supporters, we should probably be glad that you weren't involved that day, Danny, given that we saw your calmness personified when taking a penalty at Hampden. Had you been in Gavin Skilton's boots, we might not have been as big a fan of you when you came to Tynecastle eventually. No,
you never know what might have happened. It's funny. Football is a funny game. It's obviously before my time at Hearts, I had a couple of runs with the fans and things like that. Obviously, when I was at Gretna and Mikey Stewart, I had a couple of runs there. And, when I was at Dundee United again, I think it was the same guy again. I had a couple of runs, but again, once I came to Hearts, the fans were fantastic with me from day one. It's something that really did make my life a lot easier.
Okay, on to the end of things for you at Gretna then. How clear was it that things were starting to go awry just before you left? The liquidation was starting to be on the horizon, and then it really came to a head. How much was it evident that things were coming crashing down a wee bit at Gretna?
Yeah, you really could see things were starting to change. Rowan had obviously had the fallout with the manager and things like that, with Brooks and everything that happened, and whatever had happened behind the scenes, no one really knows apart from a few guys. And when Mick came in, he made it quite clear that I wasn't sort of part of his plans, or whether I was part of his things that were going to move the club forward. So I did play I played the first 12 games of the season in our SPL campaign, and from then you could sort of see things were going to start going in in the wrong direction, which wasn't nice. Cause like I say, I think if we'd have stayed in the first division, things would have been fine. We'd have carried on playing at Radio Park and all them sort of things, and the club might still have been here today. As things went, we got to the SPL and crowds were down, no one was travelling. It was only a matter of time before it happened. So once obviously I spoke to my agent on I think it was the 24th or the 25th of December, and he just asked me to put a transfer request in. There was a team going to bid for me. We had a chat about it. I phoned Brooks up. I was very close with Brooks Marson at the time, and I just said to him, I said, look, I've got a chance to go and play in a big team in the SPL for a manager that is one of the best ones floating about at the time. And what was the possibility? And he just said, well, obviously we can claim compensation for you in the summer, so you get me that compensation now and it's a done deal. So to be honest with you, I don't even know what the compensation was. That was dealt with through my agent and Craig Levine and Brooks. And on the 26th, that was it. I was up to Fir Park again, but this time it was to sit on the Dundee United bus. So it was unfortunately it was the passing of Phil O'Donnell, which was obviously something that'll stick in my mind for a long time in my career. I was there that day when that happened, and that was my first day as a Dundee United player. And as much as football is massive in everybody's lives, it was something that sort of put a perspective on things as well. So, but once I've made the move, and Brooks was the first one to congratulate me. Him and Davy Irons were fantastic with me and letting me go. Mick Wadsworth, on the other hand, wasn't as sweet when he was saying his goodbyes, but that's part of football, and like I say, it's something that I don't regret.
While we're on that slight note of sadness, then obviously the Gretna's demise was intrinsically linked with Brooks Mileson's deterioration in health. Did you see the demise at Gretna? Did you see that there was any way that was going to happen quite as dramatically as it did? Did you expect that the club, even when there were signs that it was maybe coming to an end, did you expect it literally to come to an end in one summer and then the club was no more?
No, I didn't. I mean, like I say, I was still young at the time, and I didn't really understand what would have happened to the club, to be honest with you. Mm-hmm. And I did not expect it to become as clear as the club will fold within the next few weeks. I mean, you always see these things, the club's got so long to pay a bill, otherwise it's going to go into administration, liquidation, all these sort of things, but it never seems to happen that quickly or that straightforward. But with Gretna it seemed to did. It seemed to just go from one extent to another in a matter of weeks. So to be, like I say, really enjoying my football up at Dundee United, and to be looking down the road and seeing, especially one of my best friends, Gav Skelton, I mean, to see him being part of that from what he's done for the club, it was horrible. And like I say, I owe Gretna everything for what I've done in my career. Gretna's been a part of that because they were the ones that gave me my chance in football. So like I say, I would never have a bad word to say about it. And it was a horrible time to see it happen to a club that I did love. And again, it was very hard. Yes, you've seen it come in. There's no way they could go on paying SPL wages on a third division attendance. It was crazy for it to ever happen. Yeah. But again, like I say, Brooks had a dream and he lived his dream.
Final note on Gretna then, and it fits in perfectly with what you said there. There was at the time, the media especially really kind of rallied behind or bought into what Brooks Mileson was selling, and there was I remember a lot of programmes. The BBC I think ran a couple entitled Living the Dream, and it was documentaries about behind the scenes of Gretna. I think since then, and probably because of that, there's then been a bit of a backlash to that in the court of public opinion, and there are now some people who would say that the Gretna experience, the whole situation was a negative thing. It sent out the wrong message to Scottish football, that one person could essentially overspend and, as you say, pay SPL wages with an infrastructure that was never really going to support prolonged SPL football, at least while they weren't there pumping the money in. How do you look back on it? Do you think it was just an exciting time for Gretna? Or do you think that there are things about it that maybe sent out the wrong message and it could have been done maybe more gradually or in a slightly more kind of sustainable way?
Yeah, I think there's arguments for both sides of the party there. I think if you look at it and say, was it good for Scottish football at the time? Yeah, it was. Everyone was excited. Probably a lot more people from down in England were paying attention to Scotland, or how's Gretna getting on, Jeff Stelling's never shutting up about them, all these sort of things. After it all happened, the negatives that it brought to the Scottish game, again, you can look at it that way and say, no, it probably wasn't good for the game. But again, you look at anybody at the moment, you look at Chelsea, the Man City, what happens if their big man pulls the money out of their club?
Yeah.
All of a sudden they're in trouble as well, do you know what I mean? It's not as easy as black and white sometimes. So as much as, yeah, looking back now, it probably wasn't great for Scottish game. It did bring a lot of media attention up to Scotland and across the TVs and the papers down south as well were getting hold of it, and it did promote Scotland for the short time that the Gretna were about.
Okay, we'll accelerate through your career then to try and get to Hearts a wee bit quicker. But just one thing on your time at Dundee United, you mentioned his name already. You worked under now Hearts Director of Football Craig Levein there. What were your experiences of working closely with Craig and of Craig Levein as a manager?
Craig was fantastic. I mean, I got on really well with him. My first 6 months there, he gave me all the belief in all the belief that I needed. He gave me a chance to go and play football at one of the biggest clubs in Scotland, and really enjoyed it. It was my chance to play on a stage that I wanted to play on, and he filled me with every ounce of confidence that there was. So it was great. It really was great. Obviously, the second season it didn't really work out as well. I was in and out of the team, and we had I think the day I left, Craig Levein said to me, he says, I'm never going to be so happy to see a player go, because my door won't be battered every Friday when I don't put you in my team. But again, he was only joking over things like that. He said, not many people do come and speak to me. He says, but I'm more than happy for you to come and speak to me whenever you want. And he was a manager that, yeah, you did, when he lost his rag, you did want to stay out of his way. But again, he was a guy that you could go and approach, ask him why you weren't playing or what he wanted you to do to make sure you were back in the team, and he would give you an honest answer. There was no airs and graces. It was straight down the line with him, and he did tell you exactly how he felt sometimes.
And are you, given how straightforward he was, are you surprised at the job that he's taken up at Hearts? You know, back away from the kind of day-to-day man management and maybe, you know, a slightly more technical overseeing role. Are you surprised that he's taken to that so well, and that can hold his interest? When he got the Scotland job, I was asked obviously what I thought, and I genuinely thought he was going to be one of the best Scotland managers going for a long time. To see him take a step back from that, obviously after everything that had gone wrong for him, I did think that, yeah, it was maybe something that I thought he would have gone and had another crack at the football side of it in the dugout again, to prove that he is still a top manager. Mm-hmm. But the job that he's doing, obviously at Hearts with Anne Budge and things like that, he will be telling things that he will be saying things that need to be said. So again, that's something that needs to be done at Hearts after obviously what we've come through and things like that. So I think he is the right man for the job there, because he won't hold back again. Like I say, he will tell you how it is, and he will tell Anne Budge if something isn't right. He will say, and he will make sure that his opinion's heard, and that's what's needed at Hearts at the moment. Okay, very interesting to hear your opinion on that, Danny. Moving on through your career, you then had a couple of very successful years at St Johnstone, and that set you up for your move to Edinburgh. Just a wee touch on your departure from St Johnstone. I know that's sometimes caused a wee bit controversy, I think, up in Perth. I know that when you left there, the reason given for not renewing your contract was that you wanted to be closer to your family in the north of England. And then obviously the move to Edinburgh materialised. Was it just that the move to Hearts was too good to turn down there? It was, yeah. I had two reasons in leaving the club at the time. I did feel that Derek McInnes wasn't going to be there much longer. For me, Derek McInnes is up there, one of the best managers I've worked with. His training and everything, his man management is fantastic. And that, seeing doing the job that he's doing at Aberdeen does not surprise me in the slightest. He's a fantastic manager, and it was only a matter of time before he got to a club that could really push on and do really well under his
under his guidance with the budget that Aberdeen have got. They were always going to do that. That was one of my main reasons. He was being linked with every job going the previous season, and I just said, and I said it to him, I said, I don't think you're going to be here long enough. If I go and sign a 2-year contract, I don't think you'll be here to see out my first season. So that was my first reason for leaving Dean Johnson, but that was never publicised. That was always sort of hidden away. The second reason was I wanted to be closer to my family. I was expecting my son at the time, and I did want to move back home. I had spoke to Carlisle at the time, and things were we were talking, and then all of a sudden my agent phoned me and just said that Jim Jeffries has been on the phone, and I just said, just do the deal then. That was it. As soon as I heard Hearts was interested, I didn't care what else was about. I wanted to go to Hearts. I played at Tynecastle 2 or 3 times. I'd obviously seen the cup final and everything like that. It was everything ticked the boxes for me, and that's what my words to my agent were, just do the deal. I didn't care what it was. I just wanted to be at Hearts. I'd seen the size of the club, and I just couldn't wait to be part of it.
That's interesting to hear, Danny, for a couple of reasons. The first one being, at that time as Hearts supporters, there was a line in the media that was peddled a lot, which was, who would want to go there? With Vladimir Romanov in charge and ruling the way that he was, and with players sometimes, banished from the first team for a few months for disobeying him or, not doing exactly what he wanted. There was always question marks over, what self-respecting player or what self-respecting manager would want to go there. Did Vladimir Romanov cross your mind at all when Hearts was brought up?
No, not really. Obviously I'd seen Jim Jeffries in Scotland a lot. Kilmarnock and things like that. Yep. So again, Craig Levine and Jim Jeffries were out the same mould. They told you as it was. They were never hiding anything behind your back or anything like that. They told you straight as it was, and that was the sort of manager I liked to work for. After I'd had the chance to go to Hearts, I spoke to Gav Skelton again, who'd worked with Jim at Kilmarnock, and he just said, he's a fantastic manager, you'll love him. Again, like I said, that was it. I was taken on Hearts as soon as I found out they were interested. Any boy's dream is to play in front of 10,000-15,000 every week, and to go and do it at a club like Hearts. It was just an hour and 10 up the road from my family home, so it was fantastic. And like I said, as soon as I heard it was about anything behind the scenes, it wasn't bothering me. I just wanted to get there. It's something that I've always done. Anything off the pitch, I'll deal with when it's off the pitch. But anything on the pitch, I just want to play football, and I want to play football the biggest club possible.
From a footballing perspective, Danny, I think I'm right in saying that when you signed for the club, Lee Wallace was still a Hearts player. But by the time the season kicked off, he had departed to Rangers, which is funnily enough where the season started, and you were then installed as the first choice left back. Did you know that was coming? Were you given an inclination that you were going to be the first choice if you signed?
No, I wasn't. I went and met Jim and Billy in the offices beforehand, and he said to me, obviously there's 2 left backs here, and I want you to fight for your players. And like I said, and I will state to this day, for me, Lee Wallace has been one of the best left backs in Scotland for a long time, and he will be for the foreseeable future. In my eyes, I look at him as a fantastic player, and again, whether it was maybe in my eyes, I thought he will get a move. Or not, I thought you never know, it could happen. But again, I've always had belief in my ability that I can go and compete with anybody when put in a place with someone else. So I was just looking forward to getting part of the squad and being as competitive as I could. And if I did get my chance to play in the first team, I had to take it. Luckily enough, Lee got his move, and I was delighted for him, but more delighted for myself, the fact that it was only me as the left back left at the club, and I knew I could go and play whenever I wanted.
Right, the off the field stuff kind of reared its head pretty quickly into your time at Hearts again when the manager who had brought you to the club, Jim Jeffries, departed pretty swiftly about 3 weeks into the actual season. What emotions did you go through when that happened?
I was devastated, I really was. Like I said, even though I'd only known Jim at the time for probably 5 or 6 weeks, it was something I didn't want to see happen. I don't like seeing it to any manager, and And like I say, I was devastated. I really was, because I thought, this is the manager that's brought me to the club. He believes in me. He wanted me to be part of this club. Jim knows the club as well as anybody, and he knew what I could bring to that club. So yeah, I was gutted. I didn't know what the next manager was going to do, whether he was going to like me, whether he was going to bring in another left back. So all these thoughts go through your mind as you see the new gaffer coming through the door. But in football, you've got to move on quickly. If you sit there and feel sorry for yourself or feel sorry for someone else, football catches you up and you're left behind. So it is something that you've got to move on quickly. Yeah, I was devastated. I always have been. I would love to have worked with Jim longer at Hearts, but again, bringing Paolo in, looking back now, it was something that hopefully I can look back at my career and say, yeah, I've worked with one of the great managers.
Paolo was quite a big departure from Jim, though, even from a fan's perspective, in terms of the manner that he had with the media and the way that he communicated to us as fans. Was it as big a departure in the dressing room?
Yeah, it was. It was, definitely. Obviously, I think if you look at when I arrived, I think probably 90% of the dressing room was Jim's players, and so everyone was gutted. No one could really believe it, because the season before, I think he'd taken the team on an 18-game unbeaten run, or something like that, towards the end of the season to secure third position. So it was a hard one. Do you know what I mean? It was really hard to get over at the time. But like I say, in football, you can't sit and dwell on things, otherwise you will be left behind, and that unfortunately is part of football. It's the horrible part of it. But you've just got to get on with it sometimes.
Okay, before we get to the biggest day in your Hearts career, towards the end of that first season then, very quickly into Paolo's time at the club, we encountered a kind of massive Battle of Britain style European tie. I'm going to put the two big battles of Britain that you encountered together, just to get your experiences of both. And I know we've had a couple of questions on Kickback, one of which focused on the differences between the two big ties that we had over that period in time. Tottenham came very quickly into your time at Hearts. What was that experience like for yourself?
It was massive. It was that's it. It's the first time I've been able to look at a cup draw and think, I'd love to get one of them ones, or I'd love to get them. If you play in the SPL, it's sort of in the Scottish Cups and things like that, you're looking at who you've got with not as much excitement. It was nice to be an underdog for a change and look at big games. So to see Tottenham come out of the hat and then to go down to, well, obviously they came to us first. It was just after the riots were happening, and they were meant to play Everton on the Monday night, and it got called off. So we knew that they were going to bring a big team, and they were going to come up fired up. Yeah. So we knew it was going to be a hard game. We thought if we could stay in the game for half an hour to half time, then all of a sudden it might just turn for us. But obviously that didn't happen. It just went crazy. It did. It was they were fantastic that night. Yeah. Never played against a team that passed the ball around with movement and sharpness as well as that in my career. They really were. Van der Vaart, Cranshaw, these guys were a different level at times, and it was a pleasure to be on the same pitch as them.
Why did the team cope so much better with Liverpool a year later? Was that because everyone had more experience, or had the Tottenham experience under their belt? Was it because Liverpool were a weaker side at that period of time? Why do you think there was such a marked improvement in how competitive Hearts were?
To be honest with you, I just think it was the experience. Maybe we were standing in the tunnel at Tynecastle and we maybe thought, should we be on the same pitch as these guys? When it was Tottenham. When Liverpool came up, you thought, well, that ain't happening to us again. We've got to get our heads down and work hard and make sure that nothing happens. And to be honest with you, that night at Tynecastle, in my eyes, I've watched the game back 2 or 3 times. We were the better team in that game. I think Temps ran the show. And we really could have gone on to something special in that tie. But again, football, these things don't always happen for you. And again, Webby was unlucky with the own goal. Asher block across and it hits Webby in the shin and goes in. So it was a fantastic experience to be on the same pitch as these guys, and to be able to say we went toe to toe with Liverpool, home and away, and really come out with a lot of credit, and probably should have won the tie. It's something that says massive for us as a group of players and as a club.
Okay, perfect. Let's start to gradually wrap things up then, Danny, and obviously we can't go anywhere without talking about the 19th of May 2012. What are we've been through this at length with Ryan McGowan, but we'll obviously, because it was such a momentous day for both sides in terms of Edinburgh football, we'll probably go through it a million times more. What was your experience like that day?
It's hard to put into words. It really is. I mean, I think I missed 3 cup finals before that, and I was the week leading up to the cup final, I'm just thinking, what day am I going to get injured? What day am I? I really did. My luck's never been in with cup finals, and I was training. I remember training inside on one of the days, and I just thought, I'm going to roll my ankle here, and I'm not going to be fit for the game. So, no, it was building up to it. Paolo really was amazing that week. He didn't build the match up. He didn't let us get ahead of ourselves or anything like that. It was a normal game. It was just a derby game against Hibs. That's all he kept saying. It's just a derby game against Hibs. And the boys really bought into it. Worked hard every day. Had a nice bit of fun. And the later the week came on, we started obviously preparing. Me and Gals are usually messed about after training, so we'll be hitting penalties, and he'd be saying, this is where I'm going if we get penalties. And we were messing about just in the indoor, and we got down to the hotel, and I remember I was rooming with Beats, and I went to the toilet and came back out, and Beats was sitting there in his bathrobe with his feet up and telling me to make him a cup of tea. And again, it was just a bit surreal for me being able to say, well, I'm rooming with a guy like Beats, and on cup finals, on the eve of cup final, the biggest cup final in Edinburgh's history, and I'm going to be part of it. So yeah, it was nice. And then obviously we had a pre-match meal. As we had the pre-match meal, the manager just named his team, named his bench. He just said, Danny Grainger, you'll be on penalties. And I was like, alright, no problem, that's fine. I'd spoke to my dad the night before. My dad had said to me, what would you do if you went penalties? I just said to him, if it goes to penalties, I'm going to go to the keeper's right. I'm just going to try and get as high as I can to the crossbar. He says, right. He says, whatever you do not change your mind. He says, go that way. If the keeper saves it, he saves it. And you'll never be able to say, I've changed my mind and I'll regret it. If he saves it, it's bad luck. And that was the thing that I remembered as I went up to take the penalty. I thought, I know where I'm going, just put it there. If he saves it, he saves it. If he doesn't, you're going to be a hero, and that was it. And then just obviously the rest of it was history, and it's something that being able to share with all my family. My family were right in front of me as a knee slid towards the crowd, and my wife and son at the time were there, and my mum and dad were up in the director's bit, and it really was something special that, again, like I say, I can watch. I probably will watch another million times from now till the day I die. It's something that will live with me for the rest of my life.
Did you think twice about accepting the responsibility for the penalties at any point, given your questionable luck with cup finals?
No, not at all. Not at all. I've taken penalties at most clubs that I've been at, so I'm always confident being a penalty taker. And like I say, to be honest with you, I would quite happily stick my hand down for being the first penalty taker or last penalty taker or whatever the team needed. It's something, I've got belief in my own ability that I do take set pieces at most clubs that I'm at. I do take penalties, I take free kicks, everything like that. So I am more than happy to step up and do it when I need to, and to have that responsibility and to be able to say that I scored a penalty in the biggest Edinburgh derby in history. It's something that, like I say, I still have to pinch myself sometimes and realise that I did do it.
Okay, very interesting to hear your thoughts on that day, Danny. What we're going to do is just a couple of quick hits from Kickback, and then I'm just going to touch on your kind of last season at Hearts and your departure a wee bit, and then we will let you go to get some sleep on this Monday night. Just a couple of quick hits from the guys on Kickback. Creative Cat asks, did you ever read Kickback or any other Hearts forums as a Hearts player?
I didn't know. It's something I don't do.
Does anyone in the dressing room, are you aware of, is there anyone who does go on and sneak a wee look at what people are saying about them?
I think sometimes they do. I think some people do. It's whether or not some of the youngsters. I think some of the younger guys will want to know what people think about them. And I've had things in my career where, and I wasn't at Hearts at the time, but I did used to look at a forum, and And one of the days I sat there and read about what they were saying about me and my family, and I just thought, something I don't need that. So I never have, from that day forward, I've never looked at another forum. That was early in my career. So it's something I've never done. As you'll probably know, I'm quite into my Twitter, and I like interacting with fans and things like that. It's something that I do find beneficial for myself and for the fans as well, because I'll listen to anyone's opinion, but I'll also argue my opinion that my opinion's always right. It never normally is, but I can always argue that it is right.
On the Twitter topic then, Lashat and Big Hoosref on Kickback both ask, from following you on Twitter, it appears that you've got a relatively intense dislike for Hibernian. So their question is, firstly, is that correct? And secondly, is there one individual who was involved with Hibs potentially while you were at Hearts who particularly rubbed you up the wrong way, so to speak?
Of course, I don't like Hibs. I'm in the day I'm a Jambo now, aren't I? So I'm not allowed to like Hibs. But no, it was a place I always used to love going playing before I signed for Hearts. I went there 3 times. We've gotten in the cup, so it was great. That was probably my first experience of playing in the bigger stadiums. Obviously not a full one, but it was a bigger stadium back then. So it was something. Them games, the Edinburgh derbies, really are special. I mean, down at Carlisle now we've got Tony Cake, the goalkeeper coach, who was in goals when Big Marco scored his 4 goals in the derby. So we always talk about it wherever we talk about that. So it's, again, the Edinburgh derby is special, and it's not just special to the Hearts fans and the Hearts players. It is special to the Hibs fans, but it must be frustrating for them at the moment, especially seeing how well Hearts are doing and how well we've been doing in the derbies as well.
Okay, couple of final questions from Kickback then. Who was the best player you played with in your time at Hearts, and who was your closest ally? Who was your best friend from your time at Hearts?
Technically the best player would have to be Mehdi Tayoul. Mehdi's skills and things like that were a different class. As a technician, he was top of the bunch, and he really was a top player. And but as a general player, it would have to be between Webby and probably Rudy. Big Webby is the best centre half I've played with by a mile. His leadership and the way he could organise a team was different class, and Rudy was just Rudy. I always thought I had a good left foot till I came up against this guy, and he could lash balls in the top corner from 25 yards further out than me, and I thought I could smash a ball. So he was obviously up there, one of the best players I've played with as well. So as friends, I had loads when I was at Hearts. Steve O, Hamill, Gowser, Driver. Driver was probably one of my closest ones. He's been down to me. He's been back over from America. He's been down to see us. All of them. Jammer. I couldn't honestly just say one. In that group of boys that we had for them 2 years, we were all very close as a group, and we all worked so hard together and enjoyed winning together, and we all had a moan when we lost together.
Okay, very interesting. Let's wrap up on your time at Hearts then, Danny. You were injured just before it became clear that your time at Hearts was going to come to an end as your 2-year contract ended. How big a part did that injury play in you actually leaving, or do you think the writing was on the wall financially at that stage anyway?
To be honest, I think the injury was the final nail in the coffin. I'd spoke to my agent about my final year. I did have a final year option. At the time, before I got injured, I was loving it. It was probably playing the best football I played in my career, and lo and behold, I go and get injured. So it was disappointing the way it did come to an end. I don't think anything financially, if I was fit, I don't think it would have been a problem. I think I would have stayed on, because I think financially my wages weren't what I would call anything that was going to damage the club. So on that side, I don't think it was anything to do with the finance. I think it was just the fact that I was injured, and an injured player to a team that are struggling for players and have no money, you might as well get out the door. So I think that was part of it. But as events got close to the end of the season, Gary Lock obviously got the job, and Gary Lock was trying his hardest to then act on my 3rd year extension. He was trying to get it to to come back and revoke it, and then obviously I would have had to stay for my third year, which again I would have been more than happy to do. I got on really well with Lockie. He told me, sat me down and said, look, even though we've said we're not renewing your contract, I'm trying to get your third year invoked so that we can keep you here for another season. That was the only way they could have kept me, because obviously they couldn't offer me a new contract because of the whole administration thing and all them sort of things like that. But Gary Locke did try and keep me, and unfortunately it just couldn't happen.
Okay, final question on Hearts at the time of your departure then. Obviously at that stage, administration had started. It was clear that the youngsters were going to be forced, whether they were ready or not, to step up. Have you been surprised at how they've adjusted? Are you surprised at the situation that Hearts are in with that same batch of youngsters now? Was there anyone at that stage in time who stuck out specifically to you, as being the next generation for Hearts?
No, not really. There's no. I've got no surprise at all at how well they're doing. The group of youngsters that were there, I remember sitting watching them in an Edinburgh derby on the pitch behind this training ground, and the connection that they all had. There's Callum, Brad, Tom, Weehalty. They were all Kev. They were all fantastic. They really were a talented bunch of boys, and without sounding disrespectful to them, they all had an air of arrogance about them, which I think's helped them so much this season. I think they've really believed in themselves, they've trusted their ability, and as for a next generation star, I called it 2 seasons ago, my first season there. Paul Sheeran was a manager at Arbroath at the time. I phoned him up and I says, go and get Sam Nicholson on loan. I said, he is a player, and I've called him from day one that I was there. I said he would be a big money player for Hearts. I've always said it, and lo and behold, for once my opinion's correct. So it's nice to see, and obviously I think all the lads have bought into how Robbie's doing things. I read and hear that they do 2 sessions, if not 3 sessions a day. You've got the likes of Robbie there working with him, Stevie Crawford's there helping out and things like that as well, I think. So they're all buying into what they're trying to do. They're working alongside John Hill, the fitness coach, who's on top at what he does. He's a fantastic guy, and he'll stay behind for anybody and help anyone do what they want to do. So they're all buying into what the manager and what the club wants to do and wants to go forward. And like I say, because they've all played together from such a young age, I never had any doubt that they would go on and do as well as what they've done this season. They were a fantastic bunch of youngsters, and like I said, they did have the air of arrogance about them, which they always need. You always need as a youngster to have a little bit of arrogance, and that's what they did have. So like I say, surprised? No, not really, not at all. It was something that I was really looking forward to watching this season, was seeing this, how well they could do. And like I say, it's fantastic to see them doing so well.
Well, things have certainly worked out for them, and they've also worked out for you personally, in that you've finally found your way back to your boyhood club. How is it for you at Carlisle at the moment?
Yeah, it's good. We've been really unlucky, to be fair. We've had a bad start to the season. We've had a manager change, and things weren't working for us, and the manager sat at the board and things like that obviously decided that it was time to change, and they brought in the gaffer now, Keith Curl, and he's been fantastic with me. He's given me another year on my contract. I'm captain as well, so things have worked out fantastically for me. Just now we're starting to try and put a few results together and start kicking us up the table, because we've been unlucky so far for me this season. We've had games where we should have been out of sight before they've even had a shot and got beat 1-0. So even though we are at the bottom of the league, I'm loving it. I really am. I'm enjoying the training. I'm enjoying being home. My family's settled at home, and it is really good, and I'm really enjoying it.
Well, we certainly wish you luck for this season ahead. Everyone at Monday Night Football wishes Carlisle well. We always like to leave our guests though with one difficult question. There was I think the most difficult question that's ever been asked on Kickback. My favourite question of all on Kickback. Right, so we're going with the kiss, marry, kill equation here, Danny. So kiss, marry, kill, Rudy Scatchell, Ryan McGowan, Craig Beattie. That was Indiana Jones on Kickback asked. I thought we couldn't let you go without asking, so that's your difficult question.
Kiss, marry, kill. Rudy beats Holgar, was there?
Yes.
I'd have to...
You have to marry Rudy, surely.
I've got to know. I think I'd have to kill Rudy because my left foot would come up in estimation. You see, so that's my reckoning for that. I'm going to say kill Rudy. I'm going to marry Gowser because he makes a nice cup of tea and he's a little housewife, so he can do the dishes and things like that. And that leaves Beats, doesn't he?
And he's getting a big smacker.
He can get
one
later on the lips.
We'll get on Twitter and we'll let him know the secret feelings that you've got for him, Danny. Thanks very much for your time, mate. We really appreciate it. And as we say, best of luck with the season with Carlisle.
No problem. Cheers, guys.
Thanks very much, Danny.
Cheers, Danny.
Speak to you soon. Cheers.
Bye-bye.
Well, that was Danny Grainger. Sorry, Hibs fans, that went a wee bit long, but there's going to be loads of Hibs coming up in the next section. Loads of a 5-0 victory. A stonking 5-0 victory against Cowdenbeath. I'm going to go to 2 adverts and then we will come back to chat loads with Hibs. Scott's going to get some stuff off his chest about Friday, and then we'll wrap up for a Monday Night Football. Thank you for staying with us on Radio Saltaire.